Good day, everybody. This is Michael Levitas with an attorney that does commercial real estate, Sinayskaya Yuniver, a partner in Sinayskaya Yuniver. Stephen, thank you so much for coming back, for sharing your insight into commercial law.
Good afternoon, Michael. It's good to be back. How are you?
Because you are our go-to person in New York State for commercial real estate. You do it day in, day out. You've seen a lot of different stories, horror stories, to stories we can learn from. And today I want to hit a topic that is very interesting. We talked before about, should you form a company in Delaware? Should you have one company that holds real estate, or should you open a different one for each project? Today I want to talk about specifically holding companies, because you said to me yourself, a lot of your clients ask this question. You gave an example that is very, very relevant. If you're a doctor, you're buying a medical practice together with real estate. Should you buy under the name of your corporation that holds your medical practice, or form a different, as you say, a holding company? So can you please give us insight as to what's the best way to go?
Sure. So I see this quite a bit, and I think we've spoken about this before about good guy clauses where tenant, a guarantor can leave. But what happens when the tenant, the actual business, is the one with all of the financing, with all the money? They're always stuck. So I usually suggest to my clients, open up a shell corporation that basically holds the tenancy, holds the lease. At that time, the guarantor is still on the lease, but then you could negotiate leaving so the guarantor is done. But 99.9% of leases, landlords do not release the tenant.
Okay.
So my suggestion is always opening up a brand new corporation. Doctor, if you're a this is across the board in every industry. It doesn't actually matter. When you open up a business and the name is tied to the business. Recently, I had a company that came to me, and they grew a multi-million-dollar business, and they grew out of their current lease. But their lease was about $35,000 per month. It was a prime area in Manhattan, and they wanted to move into a bigger location, which would have cost more, but they needed it.
Right.
But they couldn't cancel the lease early. They had a good guarantee. The owner would leave, but the landlord said, I'm still going to sue the company if you leave. And they still had about $3 million worth of lease payments left on the lease.
Wow.
So so that's why I always suggest you create a company to hold on to the lease, so that way your company is more movable.
And you actually brought up, you touched upon a subject, the name of the company. Sometimes people call the holding company as the same name as, let's say, the name of the founder or the name of the business. Is that a good idea, or should you maybe use more of a generic name? What do you think?
So I usually, it depends, because you want to keep something similar, but I usually keep a name like saying, let's say it's JurisQ. I would do let's say in the address is 227 Avenue. So I would say 227 JurisQ for the holding company to have some similarity, but we know that that's the only company that holds the lease. You're not going to be the one, you're not advertising that company name.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. And it seems from what you said, even though having a second company may involve a little bit more of a bookkeeping expense, accounting expense, it still is worth it, because in a worst case scenario, you want that company, as you call it, a shell company, to be responsible and not your own company, so that if anything happens, the creditor can only go after that shell company. Doesn't really have any assets, right?
That's correct. You're basically protecting your main asset. The creditor has, well, it still has a lease. So if you want to stay in the location 30, 40 years, that's one thing. But this way, at least we know that that company, the main asset of the company, is fully protected from creditors, from landlord, from potential lawsuits. You want to make sure the asset, the moneymaker, the one that sustains you, keeps you in business.
This is why we bring you. This is why we bring you into these sessions, to educate us, because these are very practical considerations when opening a business, when signing a lease, or when buying a property. We thank you so much, and we're going to bring you back with few more questions that are very practical. You're going to bring commercial real estate law to life for us, Stephen. And we're going to talk about triple net leases. We're going to talk about hard money. All these things come into consideration. We appreciate, and we have your phone number on the bottom of the screen. If anybody has any questions, they want to get your consultation, get your advice before entering into a transaction, it's highly recommendable to talk to you first. Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for their time. We will see you shortly.